Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 in my full stack lookup series using React, Next, and Node. In the last video, I covered how to get our environment set up for the most part. In this one, we're just basically going to install a few more dependencies and basically just get a simple UI going. So I'm going to go to my console right here that is already CD'd into my directory where the project is located, and I'm going to type npm run dev. And just the recap of this does is this is calling Node Project Manager to run the dev command in our package.json right here that is inside of our project. So enter, and it'll start it. Okay, now let's start. You can control click on this. Okay, make a new window. All right, and we should have our application render right here. And as you can see, it's still the NextJS. We have a small little error here. Let's see. Okay. If this error pops up for you, all you need to do for now is just go into source/app and delete favorite icon.ico. For some reason, it's too big, so that kind of makes the app crash. Anyway, so we are going to install Tailwind so we can do our styling. Tailwind is basically just more of like an inline version of using CSS, and you can use themes. It makes it really nice to theme any of your apps, and you don't have to have messy CSS. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up a terminal up here in my VS Code. And you can see it's already opened up in our folder. So we don't need to do the first step because we already created our project in the last video. So we're going to go ahead and go down here, install Tailwind CSS. We're just going to type npm install -d Tailwind CSS post CSS auto prefixer. So the reason why we have this -d flag is so it installs it into our dev dependencies, since this is a dependency that only developers will be using. Okay, so we do that. And now that we can see it's installed, we should have Tailwind right here. And then we need to initialize Tailwind. So using the npx command that we used to instantiate our project in the last video, we're going to do npx tailwind css init -p. Okay, and now we have a Tailwind config and a post CSS config. We're only going to really meddle around in the Tailwind config, but as you can see, we have a theme, which is something we'll mess around with later when we want to create theming, since that is a very good practice to use when it comes to web development. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take this Tailwind config. As you can see, they highlighted this area that you need to change so the theme gets applied. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy the content array right here, and I'm going to replace it with that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and restart the project. So I'm going to go to my terminal, hit Control-C, and then I'm going to run it again. And if you close your window, just Control-click that. I'm just going to go ahead and open it right here. And as you can see, all the styles kind of got messed up since Tailwind got installed. So let's go ahead and fix those right now. So I'm going to go into our page.tsx file. And this is currently what's being rendered right now. So we're just going to go ahead and delete all this. Sorry, everything inside of this first div here. And then we'll just do div, and then hello. And we'll delete this unused import right here. Okay, so looks like I had to refresh it for some reason. It's not normal behavior, so let's try this again. Hello world. Okay, so now that we have that working, let's just go ahead and look at some styles that they're using basically. So as you can see here, they have this text 3XL, and that is a very simple style. That is just to affect the text or font size and create it of the size 3XL. Within the documentation, you can see what pixels or rem 3XL shows up as. So let's go ahead and try that. So go in here, we'll add a class name just like we were using CSS. We're going to do text 3XL. Okay, after adding the text 3XL style, you can see that the hello world has now increased in font. So if I delete it, I'll just show you one more time. Cool. And then I believe there's another style. We can do font bold, and then we can also underline it. So font bold, underline. And now it's bold and boldened and underlined. So there you go. It's some simple Tailwind right there. Okay, so now that we have that styled, I'm actually going to go ahead and install this extension to help us with Tailwind, so we don't have to look at the classes as much. So there's actually this Tailwind extension here. So we can go to extensions, look up Tailwind, and we can install Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. And this will basically help us autofill or show up suggestions for what we're trying to do. And once that's installed, we'll go here and make sure it's working. So, okay, so as you can see, it's autofilling it. I type text, and then it's giving me some suggestions. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this hello world for now, and we're actually gonna add an input. We're gonna start building our little search here, just a basic implementation for the meantime. We're gonna go ahead and center our search bar since that'll be the main focus of our application here. So I'm gonna go ahead and inspect inside of my input box just so we can see what class our parent has. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by writing flex, and this creates it to a flexbox container. As you can see there, it shows it. And then we're gonna go ahead and do justify center. We'll do width full and then height full so it gets 100%. Okay, so before we actually center this as well, we need to go into the globals and into our HTML. As you can see, HTML is the parent container here of everything. So we need to set the width to 100% and height to 100%. And there we go. Now let's shoot the full container. And then also body needs it as well, since div is within that. And we won't have to touch these ever again. But we just want our website to be able to take up the full container. Okay, so as you can see, it shows that it's a little messed up. So I believe all we need here is to just align the items in the center. So we'll go ahead and add that property. Now that we have a little input box here, I'm gonna go ahead and create a use state so we can display what is being input into our input here and know that we can send it somewhere else for it to be used. Like if we want to create an API request, which we will be doing later. So I'm gonna go ahead and import use state. So import use state, React. If you hit tab, it will autofill it like I did right there. Now we're gonna go ahead and create our use state variable. So we're gonna do const search value, set search value is equal to use state. So since we're using TypeScript, we want to declare the type, and it's just a string. So, okay. So this is actually an error that is new in NextJS. We need to go ahead and create a components folder within app. And then we'll add a file that is just search.tsx. Okay, so now that we have our file, we're going to go ahead and create a component right here. So we'll do export function search. Okay, now that we have that created, we need to add a return. And I'm just going to go back into page. I'm going to go ahead and copy all of this and paste it right here. Okay, and now we just need to import use state again. So now that's imported. I'm going to go ahead and add a return here, and we're going to render search. And if you hit tab, that'll autofill search. And we'll delete use state. Okay, so we're still getting the error. It looks like using use client directive is actually standard practice in NextJS. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so it's rendered again. And as you can see, when we type in the input box, you can't actually see the text because it basically matches the color of our input. So we're going to go ahead and change the color of our input here. So we'll do class name, and then we'll type text, and then we'll change it to black. Okay, cool. Now we can see that. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make it so that when you type in here, the search value is stored within our use state, and then we'll render it below to show that it's being stored and output somewhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into our input, and then on change, we'll create a Lambda function, and we'll take the event E. So every time you type in an input and you have an on change, there's an event that occurs, and that event actually has a lot of data within it, primarily the value of what is being entered into the text box. So I can show you right here. We'll do console.log E, and we'll go into our console right here and say hi. So as you can see, every time I input, it outputted an event here. So we can go down to targets once we expand it, and then target.value, and that shows what the current value is. So if we want to store, or if we want to see what the value is being outputted in the console, we can do e.target.value. Okay, let's scroll all the way down, and on change you can see that it's showing it, and then when there's nothing in there, it's empty. And using e.target.value is pretty common practice for using an input, so definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, so now that we can grab our value from our input, we're going to go ahead and set that inside of our use state. So we're going to do set search value to e.target.value, and then below this we'll just display an h1 or a p tag rather of search value. And we'll actually make this to text color white. Text white. Okay, so we don't have anything in it, so I'll go ahead and type, and as you can see, it's right there. We want to display it below, so I'm just going to go ahead and change our flex to flex column. It's flex call. Yeah, there we go. So it displays below now. And that is how you fetch a value from an input and put it in a use state and then render it. Okay guys, that's it for this video. And the next one, we'll basically just go over styling this page, add some images, make it look all nice and pretty. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any feedback, please let me know. Have a good one, guys.